Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Roll Wise podcast, the show where we talk about all the cool games you maybe heard of, not heard of, all the kind of stuff like that. Today, we're going to be tackling a topic that's timely to the end of 2024 and beginning of 2025, as we're going to kind of look at 2024 as a year in review and kind of share with you folks as to what we are looking forward to in 2025. But before we do that, I think it is definitely worth calling out that in 2024 we hit 500 subscribers, and so there are 500 and some people that have subscribed to the show, and we greatly appreciate all of you wonderful folks hitting that subscribe button and jumping in the comments and hanging out with us on stream. So we really appreciate that. That's pretty cool. And so yeah, so we're kind of looking forward to speaking with more people in 2025, and I thought that would be a good way to start. But are you guys ready to look at 2024?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So one of the things that I thought was kind of interesting about 2023 going into 2024 is that when we did this last year and we kind of had a little bit of a reflective episode, is that 2023 was really dramatic for Wizards of the Coast, Hasbro brand, and everything like that, and it provided a lot of rage bait, clickbait videos for everyone to kind of do if that's what you were into.
Yeah, I
The
was gonna say
OGL
not
scandal.
not really for us. Like we didn't talk about it that much.
We touched
We
on
talked
it
about
just a
some of
little
it.
bit. Yeah, we mostly not to dogpile or anything like that, but it feels like it was such monumental gaming history was being made in some ways in 2023 that 2024 was kind of a letdown by comparison. I don't remember.
I mean Hasbro still managed to step on themselves in some key instances, but yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, some key instances, and they closed out their year strong, signing some gaming licenses or something like gambling licensing agreements or something like that, just to really try to make money no matter how they possibly could.
And
But I
they don't
don't
have
think
very many employees left there. So
that's true. They also went through a very large layoff process over a series of months where they got rid of
yeah.
some key creatives and all that stuff. And furthermore, people left their company because of the whole AI art controversy. Some of it was actually their fault because they said, "Hey, we're not going to use AI in our art," and then they kind of backpedaled on that. Which, I mean, at first it seemed like they were just like, "We're going to use AI tools like everybody does with like Photoshop and stuff," but then they were like, "Nah, we're going to kind of use AI art." So,
Like I said, they managed to step on themselves in some pretty significant portions of the year, but yeah.
yeah. So I thought it would actually be funny to start with one thing from last year that we talked about was, do you guys remember Ben Riggs? Do you remember that guy? You know who that is?
I remember the name. I don't remember what he did. Did he write something?
Yeah, I don't think I do.
Which book
He
did he
did.
write?
Well, he wrote Slaying the Dragon, A Secret History of Dungeons and Dragons or something
That
like
one,
that.
yeah.
But the big news from him was that he wrote an article that really ruffled feathers. He was the one who predicted kind of the golden age of tabletop RPGs is over. The title was something like "The Golden Age of Tabletop RPGs is dead" or something
He's
like
dead,
that.
yeah. Dead was the term that he used.
No,
Yeah.
I vaguely remember that.
Yeah, I remember that article. I remember we talked about it a little.
Yeah, and so I was actually curious since this one right here, rather than go necessarily over all the articles, information and
Sure.
everything like that, and what he had said, was that kind of from his perspective, having studied D&D before, and if I'm paraphrasing this correctly, because it was a longer article than this, is that he basically said like D&D is kind of like the gateway drug for many people to come into role playing and then try all these other things and all that kind of stuff. And this is why he said the golden age of tabletop is dead, is because it's like you can't inviting people to come watch this show about some voice actors playing D&D is immediate brand recognition, whereas if you say the same thing about Critical Role playing Candle Obscura, people are going to be like, what, what's Candle Obscura?
Or Daggerheart, yeah.
Something along those lines. So but he did make some predictions at the beginning as to how this would play out. And he said, first the prediction was 6th edition will not do as well as 5th edition, Even more firings will follow. Wizards, which struggled to know what to do with D&D when it was a success, no honor among thieves starter, really will be flummoxed by what to do with it as perceived failure. So my question is that prediction for 2024 correct?
Well, I mean, the layoffs were true. The layoffs are true. I think the book did very well, though. The players guide. The players guide came out this year, and I think the book. I think that did really well, though. I think that sold quite well.
So, Jeff, and what was your recollection? Do you remember any of that stuff? I know
I
we haven't
no,
been paying
I
attention
mean,
to
I
D&D so much.
Right. I don't know for sure, but I believe I read somewhere that it sold very well for.
I would imagine it sold well. I don't. I know I didn't see any numbers, especially with me being laid up at the end of the year. But I think I would have to agree with the Wizards. If it's a perceived failure, like they have shown really since the Hasbro acquisition, where Hasbro is placing profits over art. I mean, it's a business. I get that, but a lot of what they do is art. Hasbro has made decision after decision to pursue dollars and not not do things that are probably good for the long-term health of the business. They're better for the short-term health of the business.
Yeah.
At the cost of long-term prospects. So anything that's a perceived failure is going to be way overreacted to because their gaming line is so dependent on Magic and D&D that if those two product lines struggle, it affects all of the Wizards of the Coast subsidiary or whatever they call that subsidiary now. I think that Hasbro managing Dungeons and Dragons is ultimately long term going to be a disaster.
Possibly. And I mean, if they keep on making shady deals, that might be the end result for it. But before we speculate about the future of Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast, it should be noted that at least according to Dungeons and Dragons fan.com, and of course the press release that people had, is that the press release suggested that the player's handbook, when it did drop, first of all, when it was at Gen Con, it sold all the copies within minutes. There were like 3,000 copies that it had just sold within minutes of being available at Gen Con for purchase. So people were at least hungry for a new edition of the PHB. And I think that there were some people that were probably excited about the art, especially the collector's edition. I would have bought the collector's edition PHB because I did like that kind of like cozy, art that they had on the front. That's just a personal preference. But this person kind of looked into it and they kind of looked at benchmarking and they said, well, Wizards of the Coast, while they didn't specify numbers, they said that it first of all broke a 50-year record. Second of all, it shattered the record that was previously held by the November 2020 release of Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. And that from what they were able to find, that had reportedly sold over 105,000 copies in the first month after its release. And then it had also suggested that the 2014 Player's Handbook, it sold about 3 times as many as that. So
yeah, according to when I just looked, all the headlines were that it was the fastest selling book ever for Wizards of the Coast and D&D.
So not to say my own numbers, but at least according to Dungeons and Dragons fan.com, so hopefully their research is right. They suggest that it's between 120 and 150,000 copies of the new Player's Handbook, which I did not purchase. But that's a pretty impressive start to the new quote unquote era. Is that what the way to put it?
Well,
like,
is it a new era?
5.5 seems weird.
Yeah, it's a continuation of the old era because it's not 6 and it's not 5.5. It's a slightly different flavor of 5.
I mean,
Right?
I haven't
Or
played
did-
it to
did
be
I mean,
honest.
I think they've said there's several rules that are significantly different, but I'm never gonna know because I'm not gonna look. So, but yeah, but I mean, but like I said, with D&D, it's still the most. I mean, it is name recognition, but one thing I think he said that is wrong is I think the millions of Critical Role fans now sort of make the name instead of the other way. Yes, originally it was D&D was the thing, but now it's a million fans going, oh yeah, Daggerheart. You should check this out. You should check out this game, Daggerheart. Like, I mean, it's kind of, I think, it's kind of short-sighted to think that they can't make their own. Like, yeah, maybe they won't get new players based off the name recognition, but they'll get new players off of word of mouth, like new players and new viewers. And I think it's kind of short-sighted to think it's all doom and gloom just because they're not using the name of D&D anymore, potentially.
Yeah. Well, and I think that you guys are. I think that one's kind of a mixed bag. Well, it does seem as though the new Dungeons and Dragons is off to a great start, and the amount of conversations that I see on Reddit regarding the new rulings and people discussing the rules and everything like that, it seems to be very healthy. It's not dead subreddits or anything like that, or people going, we're going to stick with 5e. People are actively engaging in that type of content, so it seems like the player base is excited to try out the new rules and get kind of stuck in the details because D&D players like to do that. So,
but but as far as the golden age of role-playing games being dead specifically, I mean, there's a lot of games that smashed it this year. Like, look at the Cosmere Kickstarter, for God's sakes. Like, people are still super excited about that game. Draw Steel, which I think didn't that end at the end of 2024 or 2023?
It
beginning of 2024, yeah. But people are still excited about that. Mothership is killing it in a community. It has a community that's absolutely rabid for the game. So, like, I think it was a little bit of hyperbole, in my opinion.
There's probably some truth to that because they also Mr. Riggs suggests that the no MCDM RPG crowdfunding campaign will ever do better than his initial campaign to fund the tabletop RPG, and I'm not sure I agree with that. I think it really depends on what drops when Draw Steel finally actually is in its final playable state, because people are still excited about the game. I mean, that dice thing
was his statement that none of their Kickstarters do as well, or no other Kickstarter will do as well.
No MCDM RPG crowdfunding campaign will ever do better than this initial campaign to fund the tabletop.
Well,
RPG.
MCDM, that's probably true. Like, I don't know if they're ever going to be able to, get millions of dollars for another run unless their game is amazing. But I mean, other Kickstarters will. Like I said, Cosmere came out after that, and that made
buku bucks.
Well, yeah. I mean, Cosmere set a record.
Yeah,
it's true.
Second largest Kickstarter of all time.
Right.
Not just in the role playing category, like in every Kickstarter.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and I think that, but I think, and there's probably some truth to it, unless the MCDM game like really comes out and does a fantastic job with player base and everything like that. Any subsequent supplements, there is a chance that it could, obviously have that downward. People are buying less and less of it. But I don't know. The MCDM people know how to hype a game, and I think their community has only grown over the course of the thing of this. But I don't know. I don't spend every day in the MCDM community.
I don't understand why he's focused on MCDM not doing it like that.
Because I think
that's one game that's in the community versus like I said, there's Cosmere and there's plenty of other
because
games.
This was at the end of 2023, right? That was the only benchmark that I think he had to go.
Right. He's saying basically this statement is saying MCDM isn't going to kill D&D because they're never going to make as much money. But I think that's not the right way to look at it.
No, because it's still a hobby dominated. As much as I have negative things to say about Hasbro, it's still absolutely massively dominated by Dungeons and Dragons. I mean, they've got 70-80% of the market share, and thousands of other games have the other 25, 20, maybe 30% of the market. Like it's not even close. It's a giant. It's a single giant amongst a bunch of ants.
And a golden age doesn't mean competing with D&D. A golden age means there being healthy communities around everything, including D&D. Which
and to have a healthy community, you don't need 1 million people.
Right, and I think this year proved that a lot of people. There's a lot of that. Like, like I said, Mothership and Cosmere and all the other Kickstarters that did really well, I think, are all proof that the hobby is role playing games are very well off. I think.
Well, and something that I thought was kind of interesting that I hadn't really considered was that there was a. So I actually looked into Global Growth Insights. I don't know if you've ever heard of them, but they're one of the companies that will charge you very large amounts of money to do market analyses and stuff like that for tabletop role-playing games and everything like that. And what they had at least suggested in their sample report, because I'm obviously too poor to be able to hire consultants to analyze or provide their analysis of the tabletop role-playing industry, is that it's still growing, and it's still projected to continue to grow by 2032 based on current sales and everything like that.
Nice.
So it may not. Now the question will be: is there the appetite to grow at the projected rate that they're suggesting? I mean, that's 2032 feels like infinity away at this point, considering all the things that could happen between now and then. But at least the projection was fairly optimistic, and I mean, even if Dungeons and Dragons doesn't maintain its huge market share, I mean, there are lots of other games that are doing really well. And I think to your point, Cosmere came out, and I thought the most interesting part about Cosmere was the fact that when we communicated with people, like in comments and everything like that, it wasn't always people that were part of the hobby. They were being brought into the hobby because of their love of Sanderson's work, and the idea that they could try this new hobby and be part of it because they already have kind of the world in their head. Now they just need some dice and a character sheet.
Well, and the other thing and this came up in a comment recently, somebody who was looking at the backlogs, is they played Cosmere and they enjoyed the game because of the world, but also because it's a D20 base, it didn't feel too difficult. It felt familiar, which is another advantage that Cosmere did by picking the mechanics of the system. So, and I think that's something that people can pay attention to too.
Well, and I mean, honestly, Cosmere made some pretty smart choices. I mean, I'm not a tabletop role-playing designer by any means, but after playing a few games since we started this channel, seeing what they chose and how it played, like the plot dice and everything like that, complications and all those things, how that came in and how it was such a simple solution to add a little panache to the game. It was nice. It was nice to see that.
No,
but needless to say,
I was just going to say, to Brent's point, doing things that feel familiar, because MCDM feels familiar to certain versions of Dungeons and Dragons. I think DC-20 really feels familiar, even though they've all got some unique twists, but they had successful Kickstarters because I think it was easy for people who wanted something besides Dungeons and Dragons to kind of latch onto and go, no, I tried this and it was kind of fun. And it's easy to learn if you've already got all this experience playing Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, it isn't like Powered by the Apocalypse, where you have to kind of learn new dice and new systems and stuff like that. It feels familiar, and humans are creatures of comfort, and familiarity breeds comfort. So you can say, here's a new game I want to try, but it's the D20. It's you roll dice just like D&D. And a lot of times that'll get you buy-in from people. I mean, honestly,
no, you're right. I'm only laughing because we try so many games.
Well,
we have learned so many systems, and I'm not saying we are perfect at all of the systems. Far from it.
22 games in 2024 actually we played overall.
That's a lot, man. That's a lot.
Which is a lot of exposure to different systems, even ones that are the samey. There's still variations that are, take a bit to learn.
That's true.
And Mike even found some that he didn't like, so
that's almost hard to believe.
Well, let's just say there are games that I might play ahead of other games. Maybe that's the phrasing for it, to be generous.
Everybody has preferences.
Yeah.
So, but not to necessarily make this entire episode about Mr. Riggs' commentary. I think there were two interesting other points that he made in this, is that the frequency of $1 million tabletop Kickstarters will decrease. And in that case, it was true. I did check what N-World had put out in terms of their $1 million Kickstarter club, and the number of $1 million Kickstarters in 2024 was 8, as opposed to 2023, which was 10. So, I mean, 8 versus 10 doesn't really seem like the death of an era, but no, especially since the biggest Kickstarter for RPGs happened.
Yeah. I mean, okay, so there were less campaigns that hit $1 million, but in terms of total funding, 2024 had to crush 2023 simply because of Cosmere.
Oh, I didn't actually look.
I haven't done the research either, so I might be wrong, but I mean, the fact that they raised as much money as they raised. I mean, they were what, $18 million campaigns all on their own.
Yeah.
Well, and another thing I think that would be important to look at it isn't how many hit $1 million, but just how many there are. Like how many games, like for year over year, like sure, maybe there's less huge ones, but if there's more smaller ones that are funding and getting games out there, like that's still a healthy community.
I think I backed campaigns that were less than $1 million at a higher rate than I did campaigns that were $1 million.
I backed way too many campaigns in 2024. So
do you want to tell us your number? Like, I feel like this is the.
Well, I know I have at least 15 outstanding Kickstarters that I haven't gotten shit for yet. And those are ones those aren't all in 2024, but I mean like there's the Laundry, Sentience, the Conan Kickstarter for Monolith. Like those are three big ones, like right. I kickstarted Dagger in the Heart, the Heart
I did too.
Kickstarter.
I did that.
Broken Empire. We kickstarted Broken Empire. Some smaller ones like Weird World. I did. So there's a lot out there that weren't $1 million Kickstarters that were supported that are I think going to be really fun games.
Yeah. I've got a couple that are actually close to fulfillment. Loot. I did wind up backing the Loot one. I think I told you guys that. And I also did Cairn. You guys knew I did Cairn 2nd edition. That one's about to deliver. I did the Viking one. I know we talked about it.
Oh, nice.
Berserker.
Yeah.
I did Berserker, and I may have also backed the reprint of their feudal Japanese one that they had done
or whatever.
I may.
Oh, Ars Magica. I backed Ars Magica.
Yeah.
Oh
man.
Yes, and I did. What was the other one? Never mind. There were other campaigns. I can't remember them all off the top of my head. I do have, information, but I don't remember off the top. Oh, 13th Age. I did 13th Age 2nd edition.
Oh, nice. Yeah. That's pretty good. I have to say that I did not do that many. I was excited for the ones that I did, Ash for Prisma and a few of those ones. So I'm pretty excited to see those come through, as well as Draw Steel. I like to see the book. But I did do some quick math. I took the table straight out of Endworld, and actually it was pretty impressive. In 2021, I think that would have been the height of the pandemic.
Yeah.
Right. That would have,
so they had 26 billion in that year, like 26 million, nice. Nearly 13 million in 2022. So there was a huge drop off in 2022, which is quite interesting. And then in 2023, they hit 23 million, or almost nearly 23.5 million. And then 2024 hit 29.3 million.
Right.
Okay. So 2023 was big. Like minus Cosmere, 2023 was way bigger than 2024.
Yeah.
No, 2023 was, it switched. 29 million was 2024.
Right, but if you take Cosmere's 18 million out.
Oh no, that's not 18 million. That was only 4 million. Remember?
Yeah.
Oh, did I mess up the numbers?
Cosmere did 4 million. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's still not.
I mean, it's still $4 million.
Yeah. No, it's still big.
Wait, it was 14 million, was it?
It was 14 million. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. Let's not lie to the people. Let's get our facts straight.
Yeah, my bad. I saw 4 and got really excited. So 14 million.
Oh, that's it. Oh, well then, rubbish.
Yeah, you were off by like 4 million, Jeff.
Yeah, I was way too high.
So, but needless to say, I mean, but that's still the point. That's still money going into the hobby, going into the industry, getting people excited, keeping people that are publishing stuff, excited that there's still something to chase. Like it's not like the money's dried up, I guess.
And I'm pretty sure the 2022 drop off was due to the fact that like production was difficult towards the end of 2021 and beginning of 2022. Like it basically stalled a ton of Kickstarters. Like you couldn't get things produced.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. And I just noticed, I was thinking of the first day was the 4 million was the first day that they got their numbers. So, but needless to say, I mean, the idea that that Kickstarter, I mean, that's still healthy, even if it was fluke. I mean, we'll definitely see in 2025. I don't see a Cosmere-esque Kickstarter coming out in 2025 that's going to also grab $15 million out of on the books. But you never know. I mean, there could be a huge property that comes out that people are really excited about, and
Yeah, it's
could
always
do
a
well.
surprise. I mean, I don't think I would have never estimated. I can't. I mean, I would have never estimated Kickstarter hitting $14 million, period, let alone
It's true.
for a role playing
Uh,
game.
the Cosmere one. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but then the last one, tabletop RPGs will become less interesting, less exciting, less creative, and despite all the new systems, it will also grow less diverse as it becomes even harder to make money. Well, as for being able to make money in this world, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of creators out there that could probably tell you that it's hard to pay all the bills with their their RPG products and all that stuff. But is it less exciting and less creative? I don't know. I mean, I feel like 2024 had some good games. I mean, I
I
could
think
be
he's
wrong.
basing that opinion off the what started to be kind of the clone D&D OSR thing that happened in that year. I think that's what he's kind of referring to, is he felt like a lot of games are going to try and just be D&D clones, and I don't think that didn't happen the way that
No.
that didn't happen. Like, we even discussed it, and that didn't happen really the way that people thought it was going to, just because um people got bored, I think, with the idea of just playing D&D with a different publishing name on it. And you saw a lot of those people like back off what their game was going to be. Like,
Tales of the Valiant is the only one that really comes to mind where they were like, we're going to be better than D&D, and they like toned down the rhetoric, and they're like, well, we're fully compatible.
right, exactly. But like Vagabond was thought to be one of those, and like that completely changed. It's like more different than would have thought. So I think a lot of those D20 games that they thought were just going to be D&D clones turned out to be a D20 system, but pretty different than
That's true.
than D&D. I mean, even Distal, really, like, that's a D20 game. It's definitely not D&D. DC20, I mean, it doesn't feel like D&D, really, in my opinion. It's really different with how the action economy and everything works. I don't think Cosmere feels familiar, but it doesn't feel like D&D. Like, all of those games, I think. So I think what his assessment was is that there's just going to be a bunch of like D&D clones to try and to take that space, and I don't think that didn't really happen. You had a lot of people come out with new stuff like Mothership and and some classic games reemerge, like Ars Magica re-release and Heart and Spire and all those games that are not. I think they occupy more of the space than he would have thought, and they're hyper creative games, as well as all those games that like
Eat the Right come out.
Like Eat the Reich and Pico. Like, Pico is another game that I think is vastly creative. It might not necessarily be my jam, but it's definitely a creative game. All of those, like a lot of those indies, the smaller indie games, like, they're really creative.
So now that we've named a few games and everything like that we've kind of examined and everything, did you have so I think that there's really best for you in 2024. Like, what was your favorite game to play in 2024? What did you like about it, and all that kind of stuff? Or did you want to get a little more granular and say, like, what is your best rules that you liked, or best setting that you liked? How granular do you want to talk tonight?
I think we can do a game that we played.
Yeah.
Okay. So hit us with your best game then.
Well, how about you go first?
Okay. Well, okay. This is going to come a bit as a big shock, but I really liked how DC20 played, even in terms of its beta-ness, because it's still a work in progress, and it still hasn't been fully released as of yet. But the game that we played, I actually enjoyed it. Since we have been jumping around to so many different games, I felt like it scratched that heroic fantasy itch that because I really like heroic fantasy, and I know it's fun to play other genres and everything like that, but my brain goes back to heroic fantasy all the time in terms of like where do I feel comfortable running games? What kind of games do I like to see? Maybe it's just my lack of creativity in terms of how things work, and I can just explain everything away with magic. Whatever, it doesn't really matter. But DC 20, I felt, was a really fun way to have that kind of, you could still hack and slash, but it had good stakes. But you didn't, as a player, feel like the stakes were like, it didn't feel like it was unfair stakes. You felt like that was a good give and take. Like the players could dish it out as well as, receive it a little bit with the armor rules and everything like that. And since we did have a lot of experience with that one, so I might be a little biased in so much as that we ran the most sessions with DC 20 out of all the games we ran on stream, and that kind of it gave me some. And I think if it was a bad game, I wouldn't have been able to. I would have been like halfway through the thing, been like, "Fuck this! I can't run this game anymore."
You wouldn't have been able to run it for as long as you did. Yeah.
Yeah, but I didn't. I ran it and I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed talking with the people on Discord. They were really some pretty dedicated folks in there. They had some great advice as to how to create monsters, how to interpret certain rules that were still in development. They were having a great time over there. So that's me. Ta-da. Who wants to go next?
My favorite game I think we played, and I haven't picked up the books for it yet, but I want to, is I really enjoyed Outgun when we played it. Okay. I really thought that was a really creative and fun and easy system to play. I of course also, and this is might just be because confirmation bias because it's so recent, Cloud Empress and like the different like mothership modifications, like I think those are really great. And I've enjoyed the ones that we played on that. I think that would be my standout. I don't have the super attachment to heroic fantasy that a lot like you do and a lot of people do. Like that's not one, running a heroic fantasy game has always seemed to be like hard for me. I still prefer like modern horror and sci-fi. So I guess that's why. And pulp action is pretty. I think Outgun was really, that was the system that stood out to me. Actually, the system that stood out to me the most toward the year is the
Run Anarchy.
No, it was the Discworld. The Discworld.
Okay.
When we played Terry Pratchett's Discworld, the rules for it, like I don't necessarily consider it like sure the setting's fine. But like the rules and the way that the character sheet is and how you design characters for that game, I found really inspirational. I think that's really, really a clever way that they did that. And I really enjoyed that.
So nice. I'm gonna have to lock you in there. Are you saying that Terry Pratchett's Discworld was the game you enjoyed the most this year?
No, Outgun was.
Okay.
I enjoy
a notable mention for you.
Yeah, because I think the creativity of how they put the rules together for Discworld is fairly amazing. Like getting a character sheet that doesn't have any numbers on it in modern gaming was a surprise. And I think that's something that needs to be appreciated by people more than it probably is so far.
That's true.
But I will say Outgunned is my favorite for the year.
Okay. Good. It was a good choice. I like that quite a bit. Now, Jeff.
Yeah, well, I got to say, you guys, in my opinion, made two excellent choices because both of those games, DC 20 and Outgun, put a huge smile on my face while we were playing them. I thought they were just really enjoyable to play and run. But I honestly think the game that I liked the most, I think it was close, but I think that Aliens edges out Dragonbane. Dragonbane, once we learned how to not die almost immediately upon entering the first scenario, like once we started to get a hang, I think we were a little too D&D-ish with Dragonbane. But there was something about Aliens and our explorations with Mothership as well that have just left me. I have a smile on my face, but I also have this hopelessness in my heart and my head where I'm like, this is all futile and doesn't matter, but I still want to keep going.
Right.
You know, like I could make a difference to humanity. You know, like when I helped Brent inadvertently win our scenario by destroying the ship when I decided as the captain that
I should have said alien.
The aliens.
Yeah.
No, I think Aliens is another innovative system with how it's designed, and I'll be curious to see what the second edition comes out. That was a super fun game too. I have a hard time picking one because
Oh, I do too.
I love a
Obviously, I
lot of
just didn't
games,
want to copy you guys. I thought
but
about
no,
2020 and I thought about Outgunned.
Aliens definitely a good choice.
Yeah, those are honestly, Outgunned and Aliens were all good choices. But I mean, we had the luxury, the benefit of being able to play so many good games this year. And the interesting thing is I don't think we had a stinker in that list of games that we played. I don't think we got to one of the games and we're like, this is just unplayable. Like,
Nothing was unplayable. There was one or two, and I'm not trying to cast any aspersions on any of the games. There were one or two where I felt like maybe they needed a little bit further play to determine if I really did like them. But
mhm.
yeah, I'm in Mike's camp. There were some that I would choose, only choose to play if you took all the others off the table. Like,
Yeah,
I, but
that's
I,
fair.
but we did play them, and there were things that I liked.
Mhm.
So the funny thing is, I just forget about those games. Like I just
Well,
like they just go away into a place that I
What
can't
what
remember.
was the one where half the city was underwater and we were running through? We had to rescue like the kidnapped people, and we went in like through the ceiling of the building.
Oh, you're talking about when we played Electric Bastion Land?
Yeah,
Because that was
was
the
it?
one.
Was
Well,
it?
I don't think that was half the city. That was just a maze under
No,
a
it was eight.
building.
Was it?
It
No, it
wasn't
was A
no.
State.
Yeah, it was A State.
It was A State. I didn't
That's the one.
dislike A State. The scenario we played, I don't know, reflected the
I th-
potential of the A State setting.
I think that was
Mhm.
partially me running it poorly.
I,
Um,
I,
but
okay, maybe, but
but
I'm not calling you out.
yeah.
I
Well,
just,
no, I'm just saying. Like I think a Blades in the Dark system is complicated.
yes.
Mhm.
And I think that's my. I think that's the thing I would say is like it's a complicated system. I think you have to play it more than once.
But
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 you're
that might
right.
have been the scenario that I enjoyed the least, but I still want to learn more about that. Like
Yeah.
I don't think we played any horrible games, but that one stood out to me as if we played it 10 more times, I think it would get
Right.
better,
Well, and I think
Mhm.
yeah, and I think that's a
or
product
we
of
would get
Blades.
better at playing it.
I think that's a product of Blades in the Dark, and
Okay.
like
Mhm.
I've always said, I think that system's difficult because it requires a lot of ad libbing by the players, which I don't think is sometimes easy. Like it's not easy to do if you haven't done it before.
I don't think I did a particularly great
Because
job.
you have to do the flashbacks and stuff like that. Like, oh, we set it up to do this, and
Sure.
that's a
Right.
such a difficult mechanic.
Well,
Electric
and
Bastion Land was the cooking,
yeah, the cookie one.
the
My
chef
bad.
lady where we went in and
But I was in. I happen to be a boat
yeah,
person.
you were the seasick boat captain. Yeah,
Mhm. Oh, not even a captain. I just was more of a guy with a pole at one point. Um, but no, but to your point, Jeff, I think are some games it would be nice if we revisited them and kind of dug into them a little bit more deeply to figure out like, do we like how this works? And because obviously not every game is going to be for everybody, and I don't want to give anybody the illusion that you're going to like every game out
and
there,
I
but
and I and I think
You're
there's
not.
game. Yeah, and I think there's games that some people just aren't going to be very good at running. Like I don't think A
Mhm.
State was a. I don't think A State is a game. I don't think A State was a game that really caters to my capabilities as a GM, and I think that's one of
Mhm.
the reasons that it came off as sort of a dud a little bit too.
Yeah, I never
Well,
put it on you. I put it on the group, but
that's
it's
all. I didn't
possible
know what I
that
was
we
doing.
all weren't. I
Well,
don't
like
think
I
I
said,
played my character that great. Like
well, I wasn't super passionate
it
about
felt
running.
uneven to me.
I wasn't super passionate about running it, and I don't.
Okay,
And like I said, I struggle
that's
with
fair.
like that sort of thing.
Sure,
Mhm.
So I think in the hands of somebody else. Obviously,
right.
Mike has to run Blades in the Dark games from now
Well, but
It's right,
but
right
when
there.
things don't go great, I mean that's why I was glad that we explored Mothership further, because there are
Mhm.
things about that system that I really like. Like there are things that push me and make me want to try again, even though I think my character has died every time we've played Mothership. Like I understand
on.
it's not a system designed to survive a lot of scenarios.
I think Mothership's. I like Mothership too, but I like Mothership one because a lot because it's just a simple. simple
Yeah.
system.
Mhm.
Like you can throw a story together in that
Yeah.
pretty easy, I
Well,
think.
and as much as like there's a balance with Mothership. Like Mothership is an interesting game to me because like I read Mothership and it's the first time I read a game, liked the game, and then played a game, and I was like, did I like how that played? You know, like
Well, it goes against a lot of the just roll dice for fun tropes,
mhm.
which I think is hard to get around at first because there's a lot of games where you can do that and it's okay, and Mothership really isn't one of those.
No, and it is a game that seems to reward creativity in so much as that, you know, you're like if you as a player are crafting a fun story, it's your job as the warden to allow that fun story to play out as long as it doesn't like as long as there's no like I win button, right? Like, you know, and it becomes hard because, you know, like me, if you know, in my experience running D&D and stuff, I'm used to the D&D thing where like when I was running Age of Worms, I mean, you rolled for fucking everything. Oh,
Mhm.
there's a DC 5
Exactly.
thing here, and you know, you're like, oh, okay, well, roll fucking dice, you know, and that's just not how a lot of these new games are played. The new games are like, you're competent, you succeed unless you get a challenging thing where there's an interesting outcome. So,
Mhm.
don't roll dice every 5 minutes in the game. And it's like, there's a
Right.
part of me that likes to roll dice, and there's a part of me that likes to tell a cool story that doesn't need dice, you know, and they kind of
We all like to
well,
roll dice. We all have enough dice in our collections.
so. So, with that being said, Mothership, I think we're still going to be playing Mothership on next week's stream. We
Mhm.
should be able
Yes.
to have both players dead by the end of that session. So come join us. Um,
I'm gonna win this one too.
you're going to win it. Maybe Bart's going to win it. Never know.
Oh, Bart's definitely gonna survive.
So,
Yeah, Bart's
so
got plot armor.
With my last dying breath, I'll make sure Bart gets on the survival
on the
craft.
escape craft. Fair enough. So this year, I actually thought it was, you know, they'd done the any the 25, sorry, the 2025 most anticipated RPG awards at the Ennies, and they just released the list as voted by the community. And the funny thing about the Ennies is that because it's kind of like what you anticipate to play in 2025, some of these games like don't actually make it to the year that people anticipate them to be released. So
Yeah.
Mothership is
Right.
actually a prime example of that because people were really excited to play Mothership. It landing fifth on the anticipated list in 2022, and then fifth on the anticipated list in 2023, and then ninth on the list in 2024. When it
Well,
people were like,
their Kickstarter was delayed a lot. Like people were
Mhm.
pissed for a while about how long it was taking for them to fulfill the Kickstarter. So
Exactly.
yeah.
So there are some of those ones that kind of like I think Shadow of the Weird Wizards is on here in 2023 at number 6, and then it was number 1 most anticipated in 2024. You know, so some repeats. So it's not a precise. Let's just say it's not a
Not at
precise
all.
poll.
We're still
But
excited. We're still excited.
but the first game at number 10 is Starfinder Second Edition. We haven't really played Starfinder other than a small little dabble, and that doesn't really. It's
We did a
okay.
little dabble with first edition.
Number 9, Alien Evolved Edition, Free League. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's on our
that's
list.
I'm
the
interested.
one. Yeah,
I'm
that one will
interested in
be
that.
that one will be interesting. Yeah,
The 13th Age Second Edition.
which you backed.
Which I kickstarted. So yeah,
Mhm.
I'm interested. You can say I was interested. Sure.
Coriolis, The Great Dark. Yep,
Which I
that's
think
on
we
our
both
Did you
backed.
back that, Brent?
Yep, that
Okay.
was one of the ones that
You
I
backed
backed.
it. I didn't back. I thought about backing it and then realized I'm
Poor.
much more frugal with my money these days.
No, I did back that because I really liked we never played it, but I really liked the first edition. Well, I
Mhm.
guess it's the second edition
Well,
technically.
it's a second edition, but it's like the
Yeah,
it's like a continuation of the
right.
story.
I'm interested to do something once Brent gets the book.
But
Yeah.
that's a really engaging game. It's very interesting.
Mhm. Well, and I think that if you play the Path of the Icons, is that what the original adventure path is called? I think that's people really like that story.
Yeah, people love it. Yeah, it's one of
So
those. It's a campaign that takes years, though. So
yeah. Well, we could try it one day
We've
at a
never
time.
finished a
2
years-long
hours of
campaign.
play.
yeah,
I think
by
that's just not our
years.
jam.
Years. It takes years. So
Yeah.
Well, we might as well add whatever the Mask of Nyarlathotep on there is. we'll get that one done at the same
Right.
time.
And God's Teeth. We'll throw God's Teeth on there too. The Delta Green one.
So, number 6 is Dolmenwood. Dolmenwood is by Necrotic Gnome. It is the fantasy adventure game set in inspired by fairy tales and eerie folklore of the British Isles. I like that one because the art.
To some of their or watched some of their YouTube. I've watched a couple of episodes of the Dolmenwood because just when I was doing some OSR research.
They came up.
Yeah, no, in terms of like stuff to watch, like the people like the way the Dolmenwood stuff's come up, so I'd at least like to check it out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm unfortunately I'm a sucker for if you have really good, evocative art, I'm gonna at least look at it, and that's a me problem, not
That's
not a
why they
designer
put art
problem.
in the books in the first place.
Well, and you enjoyed Vaesen quite a bit. And it sounds like it's along those lines, which is interesting.
I like it when people use fairy tales and kind of go into stuff like that. It's pretty cool. Number 5 is Terry Pratchett's Discworld: Adventures in Ankh-Morpork. So that's well anticipated.
It is an interesting system. The small taste that I got at our home table kind of makes me want.
I feel like the system's inspired. I really don't necessarily. I'm not super excited about like exploring Pratchett's world, but the rules really inspired me.
I mean, it was hard to get into the mindset of the absurd when you were role playing. Like I was trying to be competent and not. I was trying to further the plot, and I was having a hard time catching some of the absurdity and sarcasm and humor in Pratchett's work.
Yeah. Well,
maybe I was trying too hard or not hard enough. I don't know.
Well, I mean, this is not something we didn't stream this one, but it was something that I feel like it's the type of game that, like, I'm the guy that always comes up with the good retort 20 minutes after the session ends.
I mean, we all are. Yeah.
So like, like in the heat of the moment, I'm like, and I sound like I'm literally chewing on rocks. But then it's 20 minutes after, I was like, oh, I could have said this. Or I get, the assist from a friend who obviously says the cool thing I should have said, aka Brent, that's what he said. And that, it's like, oh God, forgot that was a good pun. But yeah, but if you have that kind of sense of humor and you're really into Pratchett, yeah, I can see that being a good game. It's easy. It's also easy to pick up.
It's very easy.
So, number 4 is Draw Steel from MCDM, and surprisingly, number 3 is Daggerheart. I actually thought that scored higher than I thought it would based on everything else that was on there. Not that I'm saying Daggerheart's bad or I have no, but I just thought that I just was surprised to see it at the number 3 spot, I guess.
I think it has millions of fans, and I think it's a pretty engaged community. It's a pretty turned on community, so they probably got a lot of votes just from that community.
I enjoyed playing Daggerheart,
and I think it'll be interesting. It's just not, again, like high fantasy, heroic fantasy isn't my thing. So for me, it's not.
So I'll be running it when it comes out.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if you want. To play it.
We'll see. I'd like to see what the final product looks like, because the interesting thing about RPGs for me is that, like, you look at all these different systems and you find rules that you can steal from everything, and
also
has some
remember I played the crappy character in that game, so maybe I'm a little jaded.
You're like, I'm gonna play this warrior, and your warrior's like, I'm the tripping master.
Right. I was like, what does this guy do in this game? Like, this one shot isn't designed for this character at all. He's made for talking to people, rich people, and tripping people.
And while it was buffing and debuffing, right? You were buffing your teammates and debuffing.
Mainly debuffing through tripping.
Mainly
debuffing through tripping, and then his other skill was like talk to rich people. It was like high cast conversation.
It wasn't even talk to regular people. It was talk to rich people.
Only
and
rich people.
And there was like none of that in the game. So I was like, why was this guy designed for this one shot? I was a little confused by that.
That's neither here nor there. We'll take another gander at it later. Number 2, Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere was the number 2 most anticipated game, which You know, I mean, that's good. I mean, I think it's good to see that come through, and I think there's a lot of people that are part of that that really like that series of books. But I actually was surprised that this got number one. But number one was Legend in the Mist from Son of Oak. That is the rustic fantasy tabletop based on the acclaimed City of Mist, which, I mean, that kind of was a sleeper number one for me because I know that City of Mist is fairly popular. It has some spin-off stuff to it and everything like that, but I did not expect it to.
I'm not familiar,
I was
so
going to say, what is
I
City of
feel
Mist?
dumb. Yeah.
Educate me.
What is City of Mist? Wasn't that the
Yes.
game we were talking about? That the now maybe I'm going to be let's see, maybe I'm going to be wrong on this. A different
No,
game.
it's definitely a sleeper to me. So
Mhm.
which is
Oh,
fine.
that's
Yeah,
weird.
that City of
Weird?
Mist is in the city, anyone could be a legend in disguise, King Arthur, Alice in Wonderland, etc., etc., etc.
I
Um,
am familiar with that, and I didn't recognize what it was. Yeah, no, that's interesting that was number one.
mhm. Yeah, and I know honestly, like people, I mean, I think City of Mist has been pretty well received by the people that have played it. I haven't really had
Yeah.
a chance to play it, and it really hasn't been on
I
our.
haven't played it.
It's
for sure.
it's powered by the apocalypse, I think.
Mhm. I believe it is
Derivation of.
powered by the apocalypse. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
So there's a decent chance I'll like it.
It's interesting. Their other space, their cyberpunk one is kind of interesting too.
yep.
Okay.
Yeah, because then there was a cyberpunk, it's a spin-off of this, and so
Mm-hmm.
so this is the better setting. The game is set in modern day metropolis where ordinary people of all walks of life become modern day reincarnations of myths, legends, and fairy tales, gaining magical powers and abilities.
That could be
It
fun.
is narrative driven engine is partially based on the Powers by the Apocalypse game engine and the tag system featured in free RPG Lady Blackbird, which people who have played it tend to like that system. So
Well, yeah, that's City of Mist. That's the game that's currently out. You're talking about Legend of Mist, which is their fantasy version.
yeah, well, the Legend one is the anticipated version
Yeah.
Is a fantasy one, kind of as they said in the in the vein of Lord of the Rings. That's what they were saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wheel of Time, Princess Mononoke. What? Yes, please.
It's it's interesting.
Well, I mean, didn't even know that. Like, this wasn't even like on my radar at all. Like,
I've read some City of Mist, and I've read some, like I said, Other Space, their cyberpunk style game that's based on the
mhm.
same sort that's used the same sort of mechanic. It's yeah, I think it could be cool. After I read it, it turned into a game that I wasn't sure I ever wanted to run potentially, but
Mhm.
because it seemed like there was a lot of stuff in it for my brain, but I was definitely interested when I started reading it.
Yeah. Well, that's
Okay.
okay. Well, yeah, like I said, it just wasn't really. It's not a game I'm familiar with, so I don't want to pretend like I know everything about it. But it's just one of those ones that I kept on hearing on Reddit that if you wanted a certain style of play, it matched these things, and I was like, oh, that sounds
Interesting.
interesting. And then obviously, with the number of games that we've been playing, it just really never came up. So, but maybe now that it's the
Well,
number
yeah.
one most anticipated game of 2025 according to N-World, and if it releases this year, maybe we download it, buy it, whatever we do with that thing, and then
I'd be willing to try it. Sure.
yeah, and then give it a good old whirl. So for 2025, I don't think I have any really predictions that I feel like are going to be out there. I think that the gaming industry is probably going to. I mean, I don't feel like it's stagnant, but I feel like this is going to be a real big test this year for a lot of these big RPGs that promised a lot to start delivering. Like MCDM, if the game sucks, I would be surprised. But if it does suck, like, and everyone starts playing it and they're like, that's just is on my shelf. This is one of those. It goes on the shelf. That's it. Like I would be surprised if that's the case. But if it's a banger and it does really good, I mean, that could be a good thing too. Puts a lot of. I guess that would be a nice thing to see in 2025.
I think it'll be good, and I think it'll be fun. That's what
Mhm.
I'm gonna say about
Yeah.
it. Is it going to be something that I want to run? I don't think so, but I think it'll be a lot of fun to play.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So
I'm interested in playing the final version. All
yeah.
those games that we played last year in beta, DC 20, Distal, Daggerheart. Even I want to see what the final version's like, and I want to play them a little bit. Whether
I
it's
would
with our group, I don't know, but I want to give them a shot. In their
when
final version.
when I get the final distal book, I am interested in running a like distal couple 1 or 2 shot. I would like to do that.
Cool.
I really love the setting. I want to try to build a better character. You know what I mean? Build a better character but yeah, I forgot Distal was another one that I backed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, and I think what we have to do is that with Distal, I think we need to give it a good, a good few sessions in there to really see how the game plays. Because
Well,
I
yeah,
don't think.
it was pretty awkward. We tried to stuff it into the Age of
Mhm.
Worms like thing that we were doing, and I think we should. Yeah, I think it needs its own
Yeah.
time to
I
breathe.
want. Yeah, I want to see it in its setting and
Yeah.
playing the way that the game naturally plays. I like that we tried. I like that we tried to put it into Age of Worms. I like the idea of it.
But I think it deserves its own
Yeah, it
thing.
does.
Definitely.
It wasn't as much of a D&D adjacent as I thought it was originally. So
No,
it's
I
its own
agree,
I
thing.
think
which
that's what
is
I like about it.
exactly that's exactly what I was gonna
Mhm.
say. That's what makes me excited about trying it again is that it's not.
Yes,
So
exactly.
Yeah. So, with that, I think 2024. I mean, sorry. I mean, I don't. I think we spent more time talking about Ben Riggs' work than I anticipated. But they made some pretty bold claims, and I thought it was interesting just to kind of see how those bold claims stood up for the year. I don't think
Sure.
they may have stood up
so
as well. So not
so,
as Nostradamus as maybe he had hoped, but
so I have one question for 2025.
mhm.
What is one game that everybody's looking forward to running or playing in 2025 for us as we come to a close and moving into 2025? What is something that you're excited
Uh,
to run or
I'll
play in 2025?
I'll throw myself on my own sword on that one. I do. I want to run Wild Sea. I've had some things in my life that have been a little tumultuous, but I do want to run Wild Sea for you guys or for the home table. One or
Okay.
the other, or maybe both. But I think that's the one I'm looking forward to. It was a game that I almost immediately fell in love with.
Mhm.
I know we didn't talk. We've talked about it a little bit on the channel, and I know that
Was
it
it the
came out
Chainsaw Shows?
earlier. But yeah, Wild Sea would be for me.
Well, there's definitely some games that are older that I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to playing for the first time. So, what about you,
Mhm.
Mike?
I wasn't anticipating this question. There's so many games that I want to play in 2025. But if I had to pick one game.
I'm gonna pick two, so you can pick two.
Well, Brent's gonna pick two,
Well,
and
why
then we'll
don't you
four.
pick your two, buddy? Because
Okay.
I'm still like I'm in the
Uh,
top 5 area.
for the home play and more for campaign play, I'm
Mhm.
looking forward to. I have an idea for a Dune game,
Ooh,
Dune, and so I'm really looking forward to that. I've really gotten kind of into the Dune like world
that'll be neat.
recently, and I think that'll be fun. And then I'm really excited about running on the stream the 1 or 2 shots of heart for you guys eventually. Um,
Mhm.
I'm
I want
really
to try
excited.
hard.
I'm really excited about heart, and I like Spire. And so it'll be fun. It'll be fun to like finally bite the bullet for me and learn the rules and run the 1 shot or 2 shot depending on how many sessions. But yeah, I'm excited about those. The Dune game I've started to put work into, so I'm excited
Mhm.
about that. Heart, I found a 1 shot that I like that'll be good for the stream, I think. So those are my two
Okay.
most anticipated things that I'm gonna do. As far as playing,
Nice.
I'm interested in playing any game. So
I'll just play all the games. Whatever
right,
you guys want to run.
even Pico.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So I have to say that because honestly we did that whole thing where it was like what games would you want to like what were we interested in, and for people off stream that obviously weren't watching us do this, we looked at a lot of games that are either coming out or are anticipated and everything like that. So there's dozens of these games, but the more I thought about it after the fact, that I mean, first of all, the Broken Empires. That is sorry, is it the Broken Empires? That's what it's called, Broken Empires. I it feels like a medium crunch game that has a lot of hand curated rules that they're trying to put together to make that really interesting fantasy setting. And I know that, like I said, that's kind of in my wheelhouse, so I'm really excited about that. But I feel like it'll be interesting because I unfortunately I've never played like Ars Magica, so I don't know some of the source material that it's pulling from. So this person's going to have the credit for combining these in a way that is really fun, hopefully. But that's really on my list. I really want to play the Broken Empires, and that is like I'm really excited about that. Past that, I mean, it does get to be kind of one of those things where we have like all those little not indie RPGs, but with ones that make really good one shots. And I'm a little bit hesitant to say this, but I really want to play the Electric State. I want to play it more because it's not my typical kind of game to play. It's a game that really kind of interrogates people's like emotions, drives, like their dreams, their failures. How do you overcome things? So I don't know if I'm going to be good at it. Fuck, I could be terrible at the game, but it's a game that I think it combines a little bit of sci-fi, a little bit of that like desperation that the world is going to hell in a handbasket, but you're on a drive. So what does your journey look like, and how do you play that?
I'm excited. I've been excited for that game, both running and playing it for a while.
So yeah, so that's on my list. I've been actually reading it the past few days just to kind of like get myself ready to play it in a week or two, I guess. But like I just hope I do it justice is all I'm saying, is that I'm excited about it, but it's probably the game that makes me the most nervous to run.
turn on those 90s songs, and I made a playlist for it.
Oh, you did?
On my YouTube, yeah.
Nice.
Well, because like it's so weird, because like all of the songs in the book, like have you looked at that yet? Like where you roll for your song?
A little farther from that.
If you roll for like it has you roll for, and it's all like stuff that was there when I was growing up. Like it's all early 90s stuff, so it's all nostalgic for me, which was a weird thing when I opened the book, and I was like, oh, I know that song and that song.
Well, so. That's another thing that I like, is that there's a lot of 90s music that I still listen to today,
Well, me too. But
I mean, it's
so Electric State, we'll pin you down on that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Broken Empires may not come out this year. I don't know. I don't remember. I didn't really dive into when it was actually coming out, but I don't remember. Like I felt like that's my number one there. So yeah.
Oh yeah, Broken Empire.
Sticking to it. Yep. Cool. It also probably means I have a huge rule book to read based on.
I believe they said it was going to be a meaty tome, indeed.
Yeah. So whatever. Okay. Well, with that, we look forward to 2025. If you've made it to the 1 hour mark in this show, which is where we're at right now, we really appreciate you doing that. Hopefully you enjoyed this as part of your commute or making dinner. Who knows? However you enjoy your YouTube stuff. But if you want to give us a like, you want to give us a subscribe, we would really appreciate it. We're just a few friends that like to talk about RPG games, and we like talking with folks about RPG games. So jump in the comments. And of course, Brent will tell you if you want to, how you can touch base with us on social media and stuff like that, and all that. Not fair?
Sure. If you like the show and you want to talk to us, you can go to Twitter, where we're at Rollwise, Blue Sky at Rollwise, pretty much all the socials we're at Rollwise. Or if you want to email us, you can email us at rollwiseguys@gmail.com. And as always, thank you for joining us. We really do appreciate it. Roll well, roll wise, and be safe out there.
Peace.
Thanks.